Video games love power fantasies. They love gods, monsters, chosen ones, and world ending threats. But if you really look at modern games, especially narrative driven ones, you'll notice something quieter happening underneath all that spectacle. Games are obsessed with fathers, and I think this is a good thing. Not perfect fathers, not ideal role models all the time, but flawed men trying to guide someone else through a world they barely understand themselves. Unlike movies, games don't just show fatherhood, they make you participate in it. They slow your walking pace so your child can keep up. They make you hesitate before pulling the trigger. They force you to live with decisions that shape another person's entire life. Today, I want to talk about why fatherhood is so important in games, how different father figures shape their children, and how absence or failure can be just as influential as love. Some of these fathers are heroes, some are cautionary tales, and some are ghosts whose absence echoes louder than any presence ever could. Kratos might be the most dramatic and popular example of fatherhood evolution in gaming. When we first met him, he wasn't a father, he was a consequence, a man defined entirely by rage, guilt, and bloodshed, someone who destroyed everything, including his own family, because he didn't know how to live with pain. Fatherhood for early Kratos was something he failed at before the story even began. But God of War 2018 changed everything. Now Kratos is older, quieter, more afraid, not of enemies, but of himself. He doesn't know how to talk to Atreus. He doesn't know how to comfort him. He barely knows how to say his name without sounding distant. But Kratos stays. And that's what makes him compelling. He doesn't teach Atreus how to be kind. He teaches him how to survive. He teaches discipline before empathy, control before emotion. And when Atreus begins to mirror Kratos' worst traits, arrogance, cruelty, entitlement, the game makes something painfully clear. A father's flaws don't disappear, they become and they get inherited. Ragnarok pushes this even further. Kratos learns that strength isn't enough, protection isn't enough. A father has to guide, not dominate. Kratos' arc isn't about becoming gentle, it's about becoming intentional, purposeful. And because he's present, because he learns, Atreus has a chance to become something different. Now, Rost from Horizon Zero Dawn is the opposite of Kratos in almost every way. He's not expressive, he's not verbose, he doesn't explain the world to Aloy in long speeches. But Rost is one of the most emotionally secure father figures in gaming, I think. He adopts Aloy when no one else will. He raises her outside the tribe, not out of cruelty but circumstance, and he never once makes her feel unwanted. Ross doesn't care about Aloy's origins. He doesn't care about her destiny. He cares that she's prepared, prepared to survive rejection, prepared to stand alone, prepared to live in a world that doesn't make room for her. And that's why his sacrifice hits so hard. Because Ross didn't raise a hero, he raised a whole person. Aloy's confidence, independence, and moral clarity all stem from having someone who believed in her without conditions. Ross shows that fatherhood doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes consistency is enough to change the world. The Last of Us is probably my most favorite game all time. Joel is one of the most debated fathers in gaming history, and that's not an accident, I don't think. He begins as a father who failed through loss. His daughter dies, and with her, his ability to connect to anyone else. When Ellie enters his life, fatherhood doesn't return gently, it comes back violently. Joel doesn't just protect Ellie, he anchors his entire existence to her. And that love is real, it's unquestionable, overwhelming, but it's also dangerous. Joel doesn't weigh consequences. He doesn't consider the future of humanity. He chooses his child over the world, which, to be honest with you, I would have done the same thing if I was in his position. Now, The Last of Us forces you to live with that decision. Joel is a good father to Ellie, but he is not a good man to everyone else. And the sequel makes it clear love without accountability still creates harm. Joel represents a harsh truth. Being present isn't always enough if you never teach your child how to live with the consequences of love in their actions. Radagon from Elden Ring is a case study in absence rather than abuse. He's powerful, he's divine, he's important, but he ain't present. He's not present. Radagon is split between identities, duties, and self denial, and that division bleeds directly into his children. Millennia is cursed with rot, Mikola is trapped in eternal childhood, or as it's referred to in the game, nascence. Both are brilliant, both are doomed. Radagon's failure isn't cruelty, it's neglect. There is no guidance for power, no emotional foundation, no grounding presence. If Radagon had been emotionally whole, if he had guided rather than abandoned, his children might have learned balance instead of obsession. Elden Ring shows us that absence doesn't erase responsibility, it multiplies consequences of the fallout. Fetch, from infamous Second Son, is what happens when power meets unresolved trauma. Her abilities are unstable because she is unstable. Her anger is explosive because it was never acknowledged. And at the center of that is a father who wasn't there when she needed him. Now, she did have her brother, which in turn could have been a father figure, but they definitely had more of a sibling relationship, as you would expect, because they're brother and sister. Fetch wasn't guided. She wasn't understood. She wasn't protected emotionally. When her brother dies, there's no foundation beneath her, no framework for grief, no support system. If Fetch's father had been present, if he had validated her emotions instead of ignoring them, her story might have been one of healing instead of destruction. Fetch is proof that fatherhood isn't just about raising children, it's about teaching them how to survive their own emotions. Geralt of Rivia is one of the most important father figures in gaming precisely because he never planned to be. He doesn't seek legacy, he doesn't dream of passing anything on, and for most of his life, he doesn't even believe he's capable of being a parent. Witchers are taught to think of themselves as broken men, mutated, sterile, emotionally dulled. Geralt grows up believing fatherhood is something that simply isn't for him, and yet through the law of surprise, through fate, through chance, he becomes Ciri's father anyway. But what makes Geralt special isn't that he accepts Ciri, it's how he raises her. Geralt's version of fatherhood is rooted in restraint. He knows the world is cruel, he knows how violent it can be, and he knows exactly what kind of man the world tries to turn powerful children into. So instead of controlling Ciri, he teaches her how to choose. When Ciri trains a Kaer Morhen, Geralt doesn't shape her into a weapon, he lets her learn her limits. He allows her to fail. He doesn't shield her from pain, but he never lets her face it alone. That's a crucial distinction. Geralt's fatherhood is built on respect, not authority. He doesn't talk down to Ciri, he doesn't pretend to know what's best in every situation, and most importantly, he listens to her. In The Witcher 3, this philosophy becomes mechanically important. Your choices as Geralt directly reflect the kind of father he is. Do you make decisions for Ciri, or do you trust her to make her own? And the game is brutally clear about that outcome. Geralt also understands something many fathers don't, or in father figures. And that's at some point, being a good father means you have to step back. He doesn't cling to Ciri, he doesn't make her responsible for his happiness, he lets her leave, knowing that loving someone sometimes means allowing distance. This makes Geralt a powerful counterpoint to fathers like Joel, where Joel chooses possession over loss, Geralt chooses trust over fear, and that choice matters. Geralt's love doesn't trap Ciri, it frees her, and that's why Geralt stands out, not just as a great father figure, but as one of the healthiest models of fatherhood in gaming. Games don't just tell you a father matters, they make you feel it. They tie mechanics to protection, they slow the pacing so you can walk with the child, they punish recklessness over time. Fatherhood works in games because it's interactive. You don't just watch consequences, you cause them. And that's why these stories linger. Games don't argue that fatherhood needs to be perfect, they just argue that fathers need to be present. Kratos learns, Rost prepares, Joel loves without limits, Radagon disappears, and Fetch suffers the fallout from her father's absence. Different men, different outcomes. Same truth. A father's presence or absence can change the trajectory of their child's life. And in games, as in reality, that influence never truly disappears. I'm Harlem. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.